I used to think most big problems came down to bad people making bad choices. Sometimes that's true, but the more I paid attention, the less that explanation really held up. What I started noticing instead were patterns. The same outcomes showing up in different places, different people, different leadership, different messaging, but somehow very similar results. That's when incentives started to matter more to me than intent. Most problems aren't caused by evil people, they're caused by incentives. People respond to what's rewarded, they avoid what's punished. Over time, that shapes behavior more than values or intentions ever could. Once you look at things through that lens, a lot of confusing behavior becomes easier to understand. Why decent people go along with things they don't fully agree with. Why systems keep producing harm even when no one involved seems malicious. Why replacing leadership often doesn't change outcomes. It's not that people wake up wanting to do damage, it's that they adapt to survive inside the structures they're in. Think about it like this: if a system rewards speed over care, people move faster. If it rewards silence over honesty, people stay quiet. If it punishes dissent, people learn to keep their head down. That doesn't make them evil, it makes them human. We focus on villains because it gives us something to point at, someone to blame, someone to remove, so we can believe that the problem is solved. But systems don't care about intent, they care about outcomes. And as long as the incentives stay the same, the results usually do too. This is why so many reforms feel cosmetic: new faces, new language, new promises, but familiar results. Because incentives quietly outlast people. Once you see that, it changes how you interpret behavior. You stop asking why people are bad. You start asking what kind of behavior the system quietly encourages. That question is uncomfortable, but it's also clarifying. It shifts attention away from outrage and toward structure, away from personalities and toward pressure, away from moral theater and towards mechanics. That's where understanding actually begins. And if you've spent any time thinking about incentives, you already know that they explain a lot more than we're comfortable admitting. Again, they explain why the same outcomes keep showing up in different places, why systems keep behaving the way they do, even when people inside them change, why blaming individuals so often misses the point. So now that we have that understanding, you know, clarifies it a little bit. Maybe even gives you a little bit of a relief because it takes the confusion out of things. It stops everything from feeling random or even personal. It gives you a framework that actually makes sense of what you're seeing. But there's a second effect that doesn't get talked about as much. Once you understand the incentives, it doesn't just give you clarity. It changes, or at least it should change your position. At first, incentives explain behavior. They help you see why people adapt the way they do, why good people still participate in broken systems, why outcomes repeat when intentions are decent. But at a certain point, explanations quietly turn into implication. Once you can see what's being rewarded, what's being ignored, and what's subtly discouraged, it becomes harder to pretend you didn't know. That's where things start to feel heavier. People get uncomfortable there. They say things like, that's just how systems work. What am I supposed to do about it? And those reactions make sense, but there's a difference between understanding why something happens and using that understanding to excuse your participation in it. Incentives explain behavior. They don't automatically absolve it. Think about a workplace that slowly starts to feel off. At first, nothing's obvious. You assume it's temporary. You assume it's just a few people. You assume it's normal friction. And over time, the patterns appear. You noticed you notice who gets rewarded. You notice who burns out. You notice which behaviors move people forward and which ones come with consequences. Once you see that, staying becomes a different kind of choice. Not necessarily a dramatic one, not even a wrong one, but a conscious one. And conscious choices carry a different kind of weight. Awareness takes something away from you. It takes away plausible deniability. It takes away the comfort of saying you're just along for the ride. It forces you to admit that even inside systems you didn't design, you still have agency, even if it's limited. And that's uncomfortable, especially when awareness doesn't come with power. You don't suddenly gain control over the system. You don't gain the ability to fix it. You just gain the responsibility for how you move inside it. That's why many people avoid looking too closely. Ignorance protects comfort. There's this saying that he who increases knowledge increases suffering. I get it. Awareness quietly asks for integrity. Responsibility doesn't mean, becoming a hero like Spider-Man. Great power comes great responsibility. It doesn't mean burning your life down. It doesn't mean fixing broken systems by yourself. Most of the time, it looks smaller than that. It looks like asking better questions, noticing what you're being incentivized to ignore, choosing not to normalize something you once you understand its impact, not pretending neutrality when you can clearly see consequences. Sometimes responsibility is simply choosing not to participate once you understand what something actually does. That isn't easy. Systems make participation feel normal. Silence feel safe. Compliance feel like survival. But once you understand incentives, it becomes harder to believe you're just drifting. You're choosing a lane. Understanding incentives doesn't mean you cause a system, but it does mean you're responsible for how you move inside it. Once you really see how something works, it can feel heavier because you can't unsee it. That weight isn't the system forcing you, it's awareness asking something of you.